And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we are talking about the most recent news that links the Washington Commanders to Myles Garret yet again. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. And so this comes via the ESPN analyst here. This is Mark Spears, who is on their show, and then it looks like he's on Get Up here. And he was asked about, who is going to be the biggest threat to the Philadelphia Eagles next season. And he feels like it is going to be the Washington Commanders. And he adds that he does really believe that the Washington Commanders are going to really take a swing at Myles Garret. In fact, he says, look, I look at their cap space and I wonder if I think that they are going to really try to make a play for Myles Garret. And I think that that could really shift this division. And so, look, going into what Mark Spears has to say here, look, I definitely think that he does have a point. I do think that the Washington Commanders are absolutely going to be heard from next season. I do agree with the fact that we do play this team twice a year. And I really love the fact that we have beaten this team in a comeback form. And I think that Jaden Daniels is definitely going to grow from this last playoff experience. And I think that this offense and defense really collectively grew over the season. And I think that, yes, defensively is going to be, I think, a key for the Washington Commanders. There's no doubt about it. I think we saw that in the Super Bowl, just how impactful a good defense can be for you. Because, look, we know that this team really did a great job as far as dominating the time of possession out there. So you can imagine defensively, if we get better, which I do anticipate us doing here, we are going to be able to flip the field now. We're going to get some shorter fields and give this offense a chance to go out there and generate points. I think that that has just success written all over it. And so, yes, defensively, I think that the Washington Commanders absolutely do take a chance. And, he mentions the fact that the cap space is there. And yes, the cap space is there for the Washington Commanders. I guess that they have maybe the third best in the NFL going into this, off-season free agent period, whatever. The point being, the Washington Commanders have a lot of options. And what I love most about this situation with the Washington Commanders and just personally just being a fan of this team for so long is that the front office management, they really actually have a plan and they think about things twice here. And what I mean by that is I don't expect the Washington Commanders to just make, I think, a silly play via trade. And what do you mean by that? Well, I'm talking about the years back where they went out and they signed somebody like Albert Haynesworth, or they go out there and get maybe a wide receiver like Brandon Lloyd, or maybe you go out and make a huge sign for Deion Sanders, or when we went out and we got Josh Norman and gave him a lot of guaranteed money. Like, I think that the Washington Commanders are going to definitely think a little bit closely, or more closely, about who they acquire here, in the sense that it's got to make sense for this team for the long term. I think that the bottom line is, yes, everybody wants to get Myles Garret. We definitely want him, but it's got to be at the right cost, because the bottom line is this: you're going to need more than just one player. Do I think that Myles Garret is going to be a player that impacts the Washington Commanders? Absolutely. But there are still some other things with our team that needs to be addressed. We know that we need to get better at the corner position and taking away some of these wide receivers in the league that are elite as far as getting free on the perimeter. We know that. We also know that at the end of the day, we somehow have got to get better as a unit up front and be able to generate pressure without calling blitzes. But also, too, we have got to be a defensive line that is definitely one that can take over the line of scrimmage and start to generate some negative plays in the run game, right? Because that is something that we really, really struggled with, is creating negative plays out of that. And so hopefully that is something that this team is able to do, along with adding, I think, a good, free agent or a player via trade. And I think that that is something that Dan Quinn, Adam Peters have really shown, is that they like to bring in, a foundational piece and then really put some other players around them. Hopefully we get a chance to see a little bit more with the development process now that we're going into what draft 2 with Adam Peters. But yes, I do think that the Washington Commanders are going to take a big swing here. And if they do a big swing as far as going after Myles Garret, I think some of the things that we're not really talking about is what could the Washington Commanders perhaps do in order to maybe, I think, save themselves maybe some space going into a deal like that. I think one of the things that they could do is maybe they could either restructure or trade one of their current players. And that starts with Jonathan Allen. I do think that maybe there is a play for Jonathan Allen. And I think that that is something to really monitor if the Washington Commanders are going to make a move, which I do anticipate them doing. But if you think about it like this, if they go ahead in either they release or they trade, I think Jonathan Allen, they could actually get an extra 16.4 million to spend in free agency by trading or cutting him. So that's something to maybe take a look at as we move a little bit closer and really start to see if these trade talks actually heat up. Another thing that the Washington Commanders might have to do here to really get some salary moved around to maybe be in play a little bit more for a big trade or a big signing is what are they going to do with Marshon Lattimore? I think that there's probably an extension coming, but I think that these players love what is going on here with the Washington Commanders. I think that they're going to be willing to really go into negotiation and understand that, hey, yes, you can get paid, but it's also about maximizing the window of this team. And so hopefully we're able to get sort of a deal that works out best to where we can get a good extension and get some money maybe freed up that way. Another thing that the Washington Commanders might consider is maybe getting ahead of the Terry McLaurin extension. I think that there's a way that you can maybe structure that deal to where you have a little bit more wiggle room here if you're looking to make a big splash. And so if the Washington Commanders take a big swing and they miss, another free agent that maybe the Washington Commanders could consider, and I know I like to talk about a player that they could pivot off of, but maybe a player like Hassan Reddick. I think that maybe that's a player that maybe could fit the bill for the Washington Commanders here because, look, he's 30. He's going to be 31 next season. And I think that from a cost-efficient standpoint, he's a player that certainly you could bring in. I think he's going to be super motivated after that mess that took place there with the Jets. I think that the Jets are definitely going to clean house here. But why I like Hassan Reddick is because, look, from 2020 to 2023, he averaged a little over a double figures as far as sacks. He had 12.5 sacks for Carolina. For the Cardinals, he had 11 sacks. For the Panthers, he had 16 sacks. For the Eagles in 2022, 2023, came back. He had 11 there, had a down year with the Jets. Like I said, it was a mess. I think he's going to be highly motivated. I think he would come at a good discount for you as well. And so maybe that is a player that the Washington Commanders consider. I think certainly he helps you with the run game. And we know that he can get to the quarterback. If you can get to the quarterback, you can cause, kind of chaos like that. You see what happens with what happened to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl when you get some elite pressure up front from your defense here. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you agree with Marcus Spears here of ESPN that, yes, the Washington Commanders are going to take a big swing, but more importantly, are we going to connect on this big swing? Are we going to knock it out the park? I think that there is something coming for the Washington Commanders. Who knows what it is? Do you think the Washington Commanders are going to start to maybe take a look at some of these restructures and things as far as contracts, as far as maybe opening up some more room? Love to hear your thoughts here. And then lastly, what do you think about Hassan Reddick? I think that when we're starting to look at maybe a cost-effective option to maybe get somebody in there, I think on a very favorable deal, maybe a couple seasons here, and you can get some good elite football and still really maximize this championship window. I think that Hassan Reddick is maybe a player that maybe not a lot of people are thinking about, going to be super motivated to get to a winning situation because, like I said, that Jets situation did not work out well. And I think one of the best motivations that you can have is when you come away from a situation like, maybe he faced there with the Jets, just not successful with that organization, excuse me. So anyway, let me know in the comments. And as I always say, go Commanders, and I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.